and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being that best you keeps getting easier. My guest today is Barb Hildenbrand. Did I say that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
That's always sometimes can be a challenge. That's what the heck is in a name, right? So you're calling in from Tucson, Arizona today. Welcome to the
Yes.
show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So what does Barb do down there in Tucson, Arizona?
Well, I stay home a lot nowadays,
Yeah,
but
you do. I wonder why that is.
oh, my personality is not a stay-at-home type personality. I like to get out and do and be with people. So it's been kind
Yeah.
of rough, but I do workshops and seminars and that kind of thing. So that does get me out a little bit because I do it on Zoom nowadays, but I love that personal interaction and being with people and that kind of thing. So
Well, the human
I miss
element
it.
needs that, right? You
Yes,
know,
yes,
we weren't made to be separated, to be
right,
isolated, right?
right.
It's that
Yes,
community thing, that belonging thing, that connectedness, right? I mean, we're all connected anyway, right? Because we're all made from the same substance, from the same origination. So we're all one in essence, so to be separated like this, it's
mhm,
sometimes it can be a little bit challenging. So,
yes,
share
yes.
with the audience what kind of workshops are you doing?
Well, I have one workshop which is for ladies at this point, and it's basically getting over the past. You know, we all have a past,
We do?
and for some of it, it's not as pretty as others. You know, some of us
Right.
grew up with abuse, neglect, extreme demands, different things happen to different people. And sometimes we allow that to carry over into our adulthood and make kind of makes us have a tough time making decisions or feeling good about ourselves. So this workshop is to help get over that. We call it out and recognize it and then get over it so that it no longer has an effect on how we make choices and decisions that we make in our lives going from today on, so from that day. And it's so refreshing to see ladies walking out of there kind of walking a little lighter. And there's a story about a lady who would go to the park every day and or every week, and she would clean the turtles off. And finally,
Okay.
this gentleman, he'd had enough of it. He'd seen it week after week after week. And he finally walked up to her and said, "What are you doing? Why are you cleaning these turtles?" And she said, "Well, because, when they get all this gunk on them, it makes it harder for them to swim, and they walk heavier. So when I clean all this stuff off, all the algae and dirt and stuff, they're able to swim freely and walk lighter." And so that's kind of what this workshop does, is it cleans off the gunk that we have collected and help us walk lighter through life from that point on. And it's just so refreshing, just especially those aha moments. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
those.
Yeah. That's a beautiful analogy. I like that. I might have to steal that one.
Yeah, I love that story because
Yeah.
it's so true. We're weighed down by all that old stuff that we carry, that we've
Right.
collected. And sometimes we need someone to help us get it off.
And sometimes we just need someone to recognize to say, hey, this is how we do this. And it's like, oh, yeah. So we,
Right.
we get so engrossed and caught up with all of that stuff because it becomes that normal, that familiarity, that predictability. It's just
Hmm.
what
It's
was,
normal.
right?
It becomes normal.
It does, and it runs on automatic pilot and the whole works. So and
Right.
when you look at energy, right? And you look at the speed of energy and the slowness and the fastness and whatever. So when you're looking at a negatively charged energy, it's a slower vibration than a
Hmm.
positive energy, which is a faster vibration. So it's what tag on to. So
Right.
when you're in that heavy weighted down, your
Hmm.
overall frequency is lower, and it takes so much more work and effort
Yes.
to remain in that low vibration, because the human element, the spirit itself, was not meant, right, to flow in that low vibration. And so when you begin to get rid of that, of course you're going to feel lighter. It's going to increase,
Hmm.
and it's not about saying, oh, be positive, you're negative. It's not about that. It's the charge and the frequency and how we utilize what those charges are. Because a negative charge can really soar you to the top if it's used
Right.
in the correct manner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you really begin to understand that, and it sounds like what you're teaching here in these workshops is to, hey, let's see what the difference is. Let's see what we can do to alter what happened way back then
Hmm. Hmm.
into what we can do right here currently, and how can we shift and change that and start running on high octane versus
Right.
on low leaded, right?
Right.
So the analogies are great, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
when I work with people as well, because I love workshops. To me, workshops are action takers, right?
Mhm.
You can speak all you want, train all you want, but if you don't teach people how to take action, and that's what a workshop is all about, right? Is
Yeah.
showing how to put things into action, because once you have the action, you've got the change, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So oh, you're just talking to my heart, that's for sure. you know, and it's what we learn over the years, right? And we've got a lot of years on a lot of these people out there, right? So hey,
Right.
listen up. We are the experts. We've been through more shit than you have, right? you know, and again, it's true, Barb, when you say that regardless of what transpired, are you hauling all of that debris with you? And if
Right.
so, now's the time to let it go, right? Now's the time to
Absolutely.
really make the shift. And, I've used this pandemic time, this more stay at home time to really help others utilize that time in a different way to start moving through that awakening, that awareness, and that recognition, right? And
Right.
can you explain to the audience how, when you're in a workshop with them, are there certain like steps that you take with them to give them that guidance, that direction, that ability to recognize so that it begins to make some sense? Because when things are habitual, a lot of times we don't recognize it because it is just that
Right.
automatic, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we're submersed in that way of life, whether it's a lot of times what we see is, self-disdain or
Uh-huh.
low self-esteem, that type of thing. And so it's so habitual that you don't see it. It's like you're in the forest and you can't see the
Oh
trees,
my goodness, I use that too. I
right?
love that one.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, we have to kind of pluck you out of the forest and say, okay, now look, this is your reality. And this is what you're allowing to, rot you in the core. So we need to get that out. One of the
Right.
things that we do, when we talk about how we are a body, a soul, and a mind,
Right.
so, and how they all work together. And basically, it all stems from your beliefs, which come from your core and, your soul, your deep down who you are as a person.
Right.
And sometimes that is affected by your past. So your beliefs stem from there. And so we kind of go into that, and we do some fun activities. And one of my favorite is, actually, I kind of have two favorites. One of them is looking at we call them foggers and cheerleaders. So you have some people in your life that are just, every time you say something, they're just like, oh, well, I don't know about that. You sure you can do that?
Right.
You know, that's really risky. Maybe you shouldn't go there. And then you have your other ones, which that's me. They're just like, go for it, girl. You got this.
Right.
I am so excited. I can't wait to see what you do. And those are your cheerleaders. So we need to at least reduce the foggers. Sometimes those foggers are family that we really can't totally get rid of. So one of my favorite sayings is, some people are best loved from a distance. So we
Yes.
can keep those people at a distance and still love them. They're still in our life, and so we can still love them, but just not spend so much time with them.
Right.
And find your cheerleaders so that you have somebody feeding positive into you all the time. So that's one of my favorite things. And sometimes your worst fogger is you.
Oh my goodness, that is so, so true. You can
Absolutely.
be your own best friend or your own worst enemy. And I like that little
Absolutely.
analogy about being foggers and being cheerleaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes too, we want those that are closest to us to be our cheerleaders.
We do.
But
And very
it
often they're not.
it just doesn't happen. They're too close. Again, they're too close to your forest to see the trees,
Yes.
because again there's that reflection of similarity, right? And what I have found through the years, when my journey started back in 1974, now I've got 10 siblings, okay? And I know, well, I was a good little Catholic girl. I was born in the Midwest on a farm, yeah, all those
Right,
things.
right.
Right? But I was a
Yep.
rebel. But so anyway, what I have found through my journey, and the changes and things that I made in myself, in my inner self, what has happened, again, we look at that um closeness, that similarity, because we all have our gene pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the DNA. And when you begin shifting a lot of your issues and whatever, whether they're a truth or not, they're a truth to you, your belief, it goes back again, like what you mentioned, that belief system, right? And it's changing and altering your belief from the database of information that you have. And that
Mm-hmm.
database keeps getting bigger, or it should keep getting bigger, right? When you keep an
Right.
open mind on things. And so what I found is all the things that I began shifting through my belief system, my interpretation of what transpired in my childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes when I talk with my siblings, it's like, are you sure we were born in the same household? Right?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's so different, because everyone has their own interpretation. There's things
Mm-hmm.
you remember that are relevant to you, that you're hearing stories from the other ones, and you're like, where the hell was I? Because I sure as the heck don't remember that. And sometimes when you do remember similarities, like, it didn't happen that way. Are you crazy? It happened like this. No, it didn't happen like that. No, it didn't. So now you're in this argument, and you're like, whoa. So that just shows you how different people see and view things, of the database of information of how they sorted
Mm-hmm.
through it. Right. And so, but what I found was, the more shifting and the more changes that I made and elevated my frequency, and my DNA shifted, I started to see the shift in the DNA from my family members.
Hmm.
And then I watched the shift happen with my mother and with my aunts, right?
Hmm.
And cousins. And now I see it in my grandchildren. I see it in my nieces and nephews. I see it in the great grandkids, and the great nieces and nephews. And I'm like, wow. So, and again, this journey is something that is continuous. It just doesn't end because you took one class. It's a lifetime of movement. Change happens whether
Yes.
you go with it or not. What
Yes.
are you going to do to impact the change and the shift within you? Because it is about you, and
Right.
you impact the world
Hmm.
regardless of how close that DNA is, how far away that DNA is. So, would you agree to that when you're watching people, going through some of these shifting and watching them continue with that? Do you have like a step one, this is like say a beginner's workshop and then an advancer workshop? Do you have anything like that? Or do you kind of like just kind of guide them, to seek other avenues? How does that all work?
Well, the the workshop is kind of just a beginner, I guess, course. Excuse me. And what I like to do then is move people into either coaching or, well, typically coaching, but at least because one of the other things that I do is behavior analysis training. And so, I like to get my ladies that are really wanting to make a change,
Right?
and gentlemen too. I just don't have the course set up for men yet. Is we do a personality assessment and go through a report that talks about their personality and how they like to communicate, and you what their strengths are and where their blind spots might be, and take it from there and help them move forward and come up with a plan so that they can work through the things that they need to work through, because I really believe that the answers are inside.
Yeah,
We just need
exactly.
to get them out.
It's like,
So we have all these little files of
right?
things, and we have the answers in there. It's just a matter of where in those files they are. And so my job is to help bring that out. And so you drive your change,
Right.
and I just kind of help
So
steer the
we
boat a
we
little
can
bit.
call you an Alex Quebec, right? Right? Because life is like a game of Jeopardy. We have all the answers. We just haven't
Right.
found the right questions to get that
Yeah.
answer up and out, right?
Right. Right.
So I hear what you're saying. It's like, okay, and I really liked what you said about finding their strong points, but not
Hmm.
saying their weaknesses.
Right.
Right? You said
Right.
their, what was it, the word that
Blind
you,
spots.
their blind spots.
Blind
It's like
spots. Right.
that is so true because it really, things really come up and they do blindside you, right?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, you're like, where the heck did that come from, right? You know, and again, it's that recognizing. When you can recognize a habit, an autopilot response, because everything's action reaction, right?
Right. Right.
So when you respond and you react to somebody's action, and you can begin to recognize that automatic whew, whatever comes out, right? It's like,
Hmm.
wait a
Hmm.
minute, wait a minute. So before you respond or react, take a deep breath and say, okay, what's my normal way of reacting? And then do
Hmm.
completely the opposite. Completely
Right.
the opposite. You're going to throw people off to the point they're going to say, what? They're not going to recognize. It's so funny. I did this with my sister-in-law, right? Because she's an alpha woman, right? And my
Uh-huh.
brother is an alpha guy. So there was always this, yeah,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And men's brains work different than women's brains, right?
Yes.
So he, I mean, there was just automatic triggers, right? And I told her, I said, you really wanna over empower. You really want to get really in charge of what's going on here, so that he can really begin to hear what you're saying. To stop, where it's going to take you into this continuous arguing back and forth where nobody wins? Are you ready to
Right.
are you ready to be the one that's going to take that first step and say, "Hey," right? Because you're
Yeah.
both control freaks. You want to really get control? So you kind of have to
Yeah.
talk their language, right? And
Right.
she goes, "Okay, I'm listening." Because we had our little frictions too. And I said, "Hey, it's either going to work or it's not, because it's not working now, because it continues to go into that same element, right? And then
Right.
nobody wins." She goes, "Okay." So I told her, I said, when it comes up, you know where those triggers are. She goes, "Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
do." I said, "Take a deep breath." And I says, "If you can't think of something different to say, just start laughing.
Same. Oh, there you go.
Just start laughing." And she goes, "Okay." I said, "That is going to shift everything that's going on. And that'll give you time to respond in a different way."
Right.
It took her about 2 weeks,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And a
Mm-hmm.
situation came up where she did just that.
Huh.
She was like totally in awe as to what happened after that initial, comeback, right? And so I was staying there because I was helping them through a difficult time in their life with the farm animals and the stuff, right? Because my
Oh,
brother had
gosh.
horses and whatever. So, anyways, so I was there, and they have two houses, right? So I was in the
Mm-hmm.
one house, and they were in the other house. And I was working on the computer, and she knocks, and she comes in, and she's laughing, and I said, "Okay, spill it. What's going on?"
Right.
She was laughing so hard she could hardly get it out, right? And
Wow.
and so she's taking these deep breaths, right? Just trying not to continue laughing, and shared what she did and how the things transpired and how everything just moved, and there was no argument, and it was win-win. She's like, "Oh my God, you were so right on." And it's like, I
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
isn't it crazy? Because when you really start to work the compartmental parts of the man's brain, they are compartments. Women,
They are.
everything's open.
Mm-hmm.
So I like what you said. That you're working with women on these avenues, and then you said, and men. I just haven't gotten the workshop done on that yet,
Right.
because it really is different, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also I've asked my son actually to run the men's portion of this, because during the workshop we do get, down into the nitty gritty about what happened in our past.
Right.
And I think that it will be much easier for men to share abuses and things that may have happened to them with other men and not with
Right.
some woman around. So that's
Yeah.
that's the problem with doing the men's version, is that I don't think that I should be there for that.
Well, and you've got a major point there. And it's interesting because, women have been freer, and they've said it, but it's been slam dunked, right? Totally slam dunk. So women have come together and shared things, right? Where men keep it zipped, right? It's like,
Right,
"Hey, you're
right.
the man, and these things shouldn't happen." And again,
Mm-hmm.
more and
Mm-hmm.
more men are beginning to open up and say, "Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
I did experience that. Yeah, you
Right,
know what?
right.
I did have this happen to me." And if the buck is going to stop here, because an abuser has been abused. And
Right.
so it just continues, right? It's not, for the most part, I don't think it's intentional. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that we're living out what we were taught.
Right.
And, and now, because it's beginning to be more aware, and you've got the media starting to throw stuff out there, which now really makes it go so far to the other direction. It's ridiculous, right? We talk about
Right,
those
right.
pendulum swingings. It's like, okay, let's get it back into reality. An event is an event is an event. How
Right.
we perceive the event and how we allow ourselves to continue to let that event rule our life is where
Mm-hmm.
the real issue lies. It's not all the
Right.
other bullshit that's out there saying, oh, poor
Mhm.
little me, and oh, yeah, oh, you're this bad person. Oh, come on, let's get a life, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
suck it up. Let's just admit we had an experience that was uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I don't want to take feeling uncomfortable into the rest of my life. How do I
Right.
get rid of
Right.
this crap? How do I disengage? Right.
Hmm.
How do I shut off the charge that's being fed?
Right.
And it sounds like that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what a whole
Hmm.
lot of other people are out there doing. And there's so many more ways to skin a cat, shall we say, right?
Right.
Than
Right.
meets the eye. So if
Yes.
if one avenue doesn't work for you, find another one,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Detours are all right.
Yeah, you know what? And sometimes those detours we don't recognize, right? And we want to kind
Hmm.
of plow through, and it's like, well, the heck with that detour sign or the heck with that danger sign, right? We go right through
Right.
it, and now we're off the cliff, right? And it's like, what the hell happened? It's like there was this caution sign there that said,
Yeah.
danger, you know, road ahead is gone.
Right.
Maybe we should have like read the sign,
Hmm.
and then let's look at that, reading those signs.
Right.
So when you're working in your workshops and you're discussing things with your group, how do you teach people to read those signs or to even recognize that sign exists? So,
Well, one of the things that we do, one of the other activities that we do is we take 3x5 cards, and I have them write down the things that they say to themselves
okay.
or things that people have said to them that they will no longer allow in their lives. So if they had a parent that said, that constantly made them feel like they're not good enough,
Uh-huh.
you know, and whatever it is that their parents said to them over and over and over again that is suppressing them, then they write that down. And whatever their self-talk is, anything that is negative that needs to get out of their life that they can no longer allow to be said to them, we write those down. And then I like to burn them, but most places you can't burn stuff anymore. You can't even have
Right.
a candle. You have to have fake candles. So we
I
we
know, it was disgusting,
rip them
isn't
up
it?
and we throw them in a garbage can, and I take, ceremoniously, I take the garbage can out of the room and it's gone. And so
Right.
that stuff is no longer allowed in their lives. It's out of there. And there was one girl, she just one time she was ripping that card up, and I don't know how she got those pieces so tiny. She was ripping that sucker. But it was great, and
Right.
it was so helpful to her to say, this is no longer acceptable, and it was great. I love, that's what I love watching during these workshops is, these aha moments, and when someone's just really recognizing what it is. And when I talk about it's the garbage in, garbage out,
Right.
and we want to trade it for good in, good out. And I usually say, if you spoke to your best friend the way that you talk to yourself, would that person still be your best friend?
Oh, great analogy.
And typically the answer is absolutely not. I would never talk to my best friend that way.
Then why do you talk to yourself that way, right?
Exactly.
But
That's the
yeah.
point.
And I love what you're doing there with the cards because it's like you're giving people permission to get this thought out of the head. And this is one of the things that I like to stress as well. Your thinking brain, those thoughts that you think are way different when you speak them or when you write them, right?
Right. Right.
Completely different And it's like, wow, because once you move it out of there, there's like this load that gets lifted, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you said, they walk out of there lighter. It's like, wow, but someone gave them permission. And so it's
Right.
learning how to give yourself permission to be able to
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, and to write it out. That's why journaling is
Oh,
really good, right?
yes.
It
Yes.
it you never have to go back and read it, and you're probably better off not, right?
Yes.
Journal like crazy, and then have a little ceremony thing, and tear it all up and go in your backyard and start a little fire. Well, or start a big fire,
Whatever it takes.
whatever it takes is right, because wow. Right? So there's so many different avenues, that you can do. And sometimes, like taking a balloon and having all of that, those thoughts come into your speaking, right? And then as you breathe in the air into that balloon, you blowing the balloon up and all of that's going out into the balloon, right? And you can then tie that balloon, right? And if you really
Mm-hmm.
want to get free of it, right, what do? You can either let it go into the sky, or you can just take a pin, and as soon as you pop it, it explodes and it incinerates, right? So
Right.
there's so many different analogies that you can utilize, with
Right.
releasing. But the whole thing it boils down to is let it go,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
If it no longer serves purpose, let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and give yourself permission. It's okay.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of times it hasn't been serving a purpose for
Ever.
years. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, and again, when you look at, thought is magnetic, right? And 5% of all of that crap that you've got stored in that cell memory in the subconsciousness of who you are is yours. The other
Right.
95% came from somebody else through a conversation, watching a movie, listening to people, talk or read a book, all of these things, you know,
Yeah.
are attached to your initial little tiny thing here that went
Yeah.
from this little molehill to this massive mountain, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like it's like really a disaster, when really in
Mm-hmm.
essence it was just this,
Right. Mountains
right?
out of molehills.
That's exactly right. And so let it go. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
to know what it is or what it was? Oh my God. You'll spend a lifetime trying to figure it out, and then you'll never get it figured out anyways, because it's so flippin' distorted. Why? Because when it goes in, it goes through critical part of mind. Cut, paste, pieces over here, pieces over there, pieces over here. That's why when you regurgitate it, it comes up in a manner in which you justified it so that you could deal with it. I just,
Right.
that to me is the most devastating word. Whoever come up, well, I just deal with it. Like, really? What the hell is deal with it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. A
So,
lot of times it's ignore it, but if,
right.
like a cancer, if you ignore it, it's not going to go away.
Well, no. And again, it eats away inside of you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why when you give yourself permission, and when we look at the dysfunctions, this is another avenue. When you start to look at the dysfunctions, in your physical body,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the last straw, right? You have your spiritual level of the all-knowing, and then you come into your mental state, which is your brain chatter and all that kind of crap, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it comes into the emotional things that feed the mental. Now you got those things really working together, and then it hits that physical body. Well, emotions are stored in different avenues of the body. So when you start getting a dysfunction in this meat machine, as someone called it on my show, I love that. Isn't that cool? This meat machine we're walking around in. I just loved that. So this meat machine now is running amok. Maybe your joints are acting up, maybe you're getting overweight, maybe you've got muscle pain, maybe something's dysfunction in an organ, all of this stuff, right?
Right.
Well, what's attached to it?
Mm-hmm.
What is eating away at you? And basically that C word that you used is nothing more than what's eating away at you in that avenue of where it's found,
Right.
right? So all of these things play a role. So the mind is powerful. The mind will
Yes.
overcome anything and everything in your thought processing and how you release it and what you feed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you're feeding yourself thoughts that are unhealthy, what's going to happen? What the
Right.
mind can conceive and believe it can,
Achieve.
there we go.
Yeah.
So it's a hell of a lot easier to achieve a happy thought. It's a lot less work. And it's a lot more
Yes.
fun than it
Yes.
is to continue on the fears or the angers or the upsets or the excuses or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you start working with people in that avenue of direction and you begin to really work, say on your coaching, whether it's a group coaching or a one-on-one coaching, um, where do you find the biggest aha moments happening when you get over the initial, hey, I'm giving you permission, I'm helping you to recognize, I'm helping you to start to feel good by, like you say, just making these little notes on these cards and tearing them up, the
Mm-hmm.
simplicity of it, right?
Right. Right. I think the aha moments come a lot in kind of as you were saying, what you feed manifests.
Right.
So there's a lot of ahas going, oh, I'm wallowing in this negativity. And so therefore I'm getting more negativity.
Right.
So I need to get out of the mud pool and start cleaning up and start, thinking good thoughts. And one thing that I say is, if you start a thought that is negative,
Hmm.
just stop it in its tracks. As soon as you recognize it, just say, if you're starting to think, oh, well, that was, don't say stupid, stop it.
Right.
Recognize it for what the negativity it was and say, oh, well, I'll do better next time.
Right.
Counteract that negative thought, that negativity, and just don't let it continue at all. Just absolutely put on the brakes and change your self-talk. And there's a lot of power in that for
Right. Right.
for people because I think we don't really think about interrupting our self-talk, but we
Yeah.
absolutely need to
Yeah.
do it because it's a
Yeah.
habitual thing. We we have learned to habitually speak to ourselves in a bad way, and
Eh,
typically put ourselves down. We are our own worst critic.
yeah.
So, when we do something that we shouldn't have done or any of that, we are so quick to pull ourselves down, and we need to just start pulling ourselves up and not
Exactly.
allow that to continue at all. And I think that that's where a lot of the aha comes from, where, oh,
I really can change that thought,
I
right?
don't have to do that. I can change how I talk to myself, and that's gonna make a difference in my life.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's learning how to trust yourself, how to honor
Mhm.
yourself, and how to honor other people. So, and we are reflections, right? What we see in someone else that's uncomfortable or we don't like, turn it around and say, "Hmm, I wonder if I have that going on inside of me." Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. You know, I do.
Yeah.
How am I gonna change that? So when you change the world within, the world without changes, right?
Right.
So
Right.
again, it's your perception. So was that person really, irritating you? Or was it just an action that triggered something within you, right? Again, here's that action reaction crap, right?
Right,
So
right.
that recognizing, and I think that that is the key element. I know when I run people through, the similar, things that you're doing, the first thing is to recognize, Houston, we have a problem, right? Because if you
Yeah,
don't recognize there's something that you want to change that you're uncomfortable with, you can't go any further than that,
right.
right? So really give yourself a big pat on the back and say, "Hey, look what I just found!" Right? Look at his being these morsels of diamonds or something, right? Because they really are.
Yeah, yeah.
They really are. Don't look at it as a pile of you know what. Look at it as, wow, I just found this diamond. Oh my God, that must have been in there for a really long time because it takes a long time to make a diamond out of this, crap you keep pressing, right? You know,
Right,
and
right.
so every time you spot something, you know, well, how old is it? Is it in the diamond realm? Is it in the ruby realm? Is it in the sapphire realm? Is it in the gold realm? Is it in the silver realm? Where is it? How long has it been
Right.
there? Maybe it's just a clunky old rock, but hey, that rock could have turned into a diamond. I'm glad I found it now, right? Okay, you're up and out of here. You know,
Yeah.
so so using all the different analogies, and to make it fun, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
one of the things we do on this show. We laugh a
yes.
lot. We turn things into fun activities because life is a joke. It really is. And when you start really looking at all of that crap that was driving you crazy and all of that brain chatter, when you start to recognize it and you start eliminating it, and then it gets to be fun because the more you recognize, the more you get away, the lighter you feel, the more you want to do, and it is continuous. And then it
Oh,
gets to be a fun game. It's like, wow, yeah, this is what life is all about. So you
yeah.
either living or you're dying, right?
Right.
You're either
Yeah.
getting rid of rocks or you're turning them into diamonds and then into whatever comes after that, right?
Right,
So
right.
dig them out and let them go, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a process, but it can happen.
And it's that fast. Change is that fast. It's not a
Hmm.
slow process. Time is what? Time is of the mind.
Right.
There's no time and no space, only what you make it, right? Only what you make it. Barb, this has been amazing. I enjoyed our conversation here, and I'm sure the audience has. Everything that you've said goes right along with our theme of being that best you that you can be. So every time you take one of these little cards that Barb gives you and you write this down, and then you tear it up and you take the trash out, or you have your little burn ceremony, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Wow. You've created change. So
Right.
change
Right.
can go with you or without you, right?
Yes.
So, Barb, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you? And then give them one more morsel that they can take with them and put into action today.
Well, they can reach me I have a website, which is www.steppingstonesvip.com.
Ooh, I like
Very
that.
important person because everybody's a VIP in my life.
Stepping Stone VIP.
Stepping Stones VIP, because we're taking all the yuck and making stepping stones so that we can
All those diamonds that you can
get
walk
to
on
where we
now.
want to go. Yes, absolutely. Or I'm on Facebook, Stepping Stones Consulting, or Stepping Stone. I think it's Stepping Stones Barb is my Facebook page,
Okay?
or just Barb Hildenbrand.
Just remember
And
this beautiful little face and look her up, right?
and I'll always be wearing pink, something pink.
Well, all right then.
It's my favorite color.
Well, pink is what? Pink is the color of love,
There you go.
right?
And
So,
I'm full of it.
Well, we know you're full of it, right? And that's great. We all need to be full of it. There you go.
Right, right. And I guess one nugget that I would leave is to think about forgiveness.
Oh,
I know that
wow.
sometimes that can be a dirty word, but when you forgive someone, you are choosing to not let that control you, that action. You are not excusing their behavior by
Right.
any stretch, what they did or what you did. You may even need to forgive yourself. You're not excusing the behavior, but you're not allowing it to keep you in a place of complacency.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Wow.
So
Thank
think
you.
about that one.
Yeah. Think about that one. Where are you going to forgive yourself today? Where are
Right.
you going to forgive someone else? Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And again, forgiving without strings attached.
Right. Right.
Right? Because I think that's really important because sometimes we love with strings attached. We do with strings attached, right? Okay, so
Yes.
I do this for you. Now you owe me somewhere down the line. Come on. Let's
Right.
grow up, right? No strings attached. And forgiveness from the heart is real because I feel that, forgiveness is also a way to honor the self and to
Mm-hmm.
honor the other person because that was their choice, that was their belief and their truth. Just
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't fit into yours doesn't make it right or wrong for that other person, right? So, forgiveness, thank you so much for sharing that because that definitely is a key element. So, go
Mm-hmm.
out there and utilize forgiveness today and think of Barb when you're doing it, right? And go find her, go chase her down. Social media is definitely out there and it's really come alive in this world
Yes.
today, right?
Yes, it has.
Yes, it has. And we all need to become what? That better us. So go out there,
Yes.
be that best you that you can be because Barb and I are going to go be what? The best we that we can be. I want to thank you for being here, Barb, and thank everyone
Oh,
for
thank you.
listening today. And we will see you where? On the next show. Bye, everybody.